So really, for me to argue that we should be taking good care of our people is not an enormous stretch to make the business case around that whatsoever. I actually don't think it's soft. I think it's about being very commercial in how you think about your assets. We do care about our people, and we want to create an organisation whereby that's evident in everything that we do, and we need to work hard at this. So I'm not saying it's not something we're finished on, but it's very much a conscious approach for us to be creating a culture of care.
Thank you for joining us and HR Congress. Your discussion today was really around cultivating a happy organization through a culture of care. That's a small word, but it's a big topic. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and why you picked on care, as a theme to create that culture you were looking for?
Thank you for having me here. I think that there's two ways around that I think about this. One, I've been in the world of HR for 27 years now, and if I go back to when I started, the audit model was a new thing. HR was to become more strategic, more analytical, more commercial, more business focused. It needed to. I think that was the right direction. But I feel like what maybe got lost in that was at the heart of it, caring for your key assets, your people. And we hear business leaders talk about this all the time. My most important assets are my people. And I think that lost its way. More recently, I think we've got much better balance around that. And certainly at Bank of Ireland, we very much believe that our people are the difference when it comes to what we do for our customers. So really, for me to argue that we should be taking good care of our people is not an enormous stretch to make the business case around that whatsoever. I actually don't think it's soft. I think it's about being very commercial in how you think about your assets. We do care about our people, and we want to create an organisation whereby that's evident in everything that we do, and we need to work hard at this. So I'm not saying it's not something we're finished on, but it's very much a conscious approach for us to be creating a culture of care. So in many cases that means expressing a policy around something that our people might be experiencing in their lives, and we want to be part of the solution for whether it be originating at work or not. It also means creating connections for our people. We've got macro trends, I think, in society about people feeling less connected, more lonely. I see a role for a caring organisation in, appropriately, if people want it, helping fill that space. And we see people respond really well to that in the bank. So actually, I think it's really appropriate. It's not about stepping over into a space that people don't want us to be in, but actually it's about recognising that our people do experience challenges inside and outside of the organisation. And why wouldn't we want to be part of helping to make sure that they can be at their best day in, day out?
It's really interesting, and I guess the question would be how do you make that happen? So what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And indeed, your role, for instance, as CEEP, how have you helped to move that culture of care, ambition or intent to kind of more reality, with your colleagues? And
what I would say is we didn't start out by saying this is what we want to be. We've realised over a period of time it's what we're doing. And so I'm not claiming that we've had this amazing foresight and been very clever about becoming a caring organisation. What we did recognise is that we were supporting people when they were really struggling. And if I pick a couple of examples, possibly around mental health challenges, we've seen actually a decline in work-related mental health issues for our colleagues, which is great. We obviously monitor that really, really closely. We've seen an increase overall, so in other words, our people are suffering as a result of things that are just happening in their lives. Now, it doesn't matter to us where a mental health issue arises. We want to be part of the solution. We can only be part of the solution if we're trusted as an organisation, so that we can actually provide the right support that we feel we've got. So another would be recognising in a big organisation like ours, across 10,000 plus people, really everything that we see happening in society, our people of course are experiencing. That means difficult things at times. Take domestic abuse, for example. And quietly, we were supporting people who would come to us, I think in very appropriate ways in those circumstances. But why should it be quiet? Of course we respect the confidence of the individual, but why would we be quiet about providing that support? So we established a domestic abuse policy. I think that means that all our colleagues know if they need help from us around an issue like that, they know we are interested, we are open, we are ready to be supportive. We want to be part of the solution of what's obviously a very difficult time for our colleague. And so in many ways it's about being visible about our approach through having appropriate policies there. Essentially we have to build trust in the organisation too, we have to communicate very openly at all times, and I'd like to think that we've built a track record around doing that, and you can only prove over a period of time that that's what your intent is, that it's well intended, and be judged by your record as a result.
So tell me how that filters through. I mean, that sounds like it might have had an implication in terms of your HR team, in terms of their training or their ability or the resource that you had to maybe put behind it. You talk about policy, but then policy needs to be then backed up with response. So are these kind of discussions that you're trying to make people feel comfortable in having, are they happening with their managers? Are they happening with confidentially with HR? And if HR, what's HR's, has there been a shift or a change in their role, or have you put special people on this? How have you, I suppose, delivered an infrastructure of to be able to deliver on this, as opposed to just give us a call and then hope that they're getting the right person to talk to? How have you created the system?
We did. So first we've had to create more confidence in the organisation about what the role of HR is. It's only a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, that I was on a manager event and I was asked very openly by a manager, it was a great challenge, are you saying we can have full confidence in approaching HR about issues that a colleague may have? Now, I'd only been at the company for a couple of years at that point. I think the manager who asked the question had been there for much longer. And obviously their experience over a period of time was that actually they didn't feel they could trust the organisation. So in other words, will there be consequences around somebody's career or record or whatever? You can only out those kind of considerations if you're having the right conversation in the first place. And we were. And then we have to stand by what we say in our record around it. So that's the first thing, just building confidence. We've done a series of workshops with managers. So if I touch on and blend that in with the manager point, I think it's very hard to do what I'm talking about, creating a culture of care in an organisation without the support and full involvement of managers. This isn't a discrete responsibility. Of course, from a day-to-day perspective, the manager is the person who's there to see what's happening.
And might see the pattern of behaviour shift, indeed.
Of course. Yeah. For us, we've established a real working set of principles around this now. I think it's just as important to be clear as to what we're not asking managers to do as to what it is. We've been talking about mental health, about suicide prevention, about menopause, but we've been getting into quite challenging areas. We've been really clear with colleagues, managers, we do not expect managers to be experts in these areas. So we've been really clear on what the ask is, only if we train around this. We won't ask anyone to do something we've not equipped them to do. And the ask is to build awareness in whatever it may be, mental health, and then to signpost for support, not to be the expert to solve the issue. So I think we've really been super clear on what the ask of managers is, and that's an important part of this. Of course, then supported with the right training to make sure that that very straight ask can actually be seen through. So managers definitely crucial in all of this. From an HR team perspective, I'm very fortunate. My organisation is a significant one in terms of its scale. Much of the support infrastructure we did have in place, we just weren't utilising that to best effect, and actually creating the right culture means that we now can, and colleagues increasingly have helped the support and the confidence to know that we're there to do the right thing for them.
I'm interested too, we talked about HR's enhanced role here, we talked about the policy level, we talked about the manager role. I'm interested even about the colleague challenge and the communication challenge, because also you've had to connect with them to sort of say, look, it's okay to talk about this, there's no implications or consequences. We want you to talk about, we recognize there are things in your personal life that you're bringing to work and so on. What's that been like in terms of the communications effort with colleagues, and almost like what's their role in this culture of care that you're developing? They need to play a part here too. And what have you had to do to sort of to challenge colleagues on their role in this culture of care?
Well, we can't do anything without a real partnership in the organisation, and I think colleagues need to understand the organisation's well intended. That's been part of our communication approach and challenge. But then we expect a two-way trust, openness, confidentiality. When I think about the approach that we've taken, there have been different avenues to, because in many ways I think if you've got 10,000 people, you need to reach everybody in the way that suits them and works for them as far as you can. So one way that we've done that is to use social media, which have many concerns about its impact on our people, actually. But to use it for good, we have a private Instagram account that's just around well-being. And so we started this a few years ago. If you'd have said to me back then that we'd have nearly 3,500 people now out of 10,000 on their own phone in their own time on a private Instagram account, engaging with the bank around well-being, I wouldn't have thought that would have happened. So I think you have to try different ways because it's what suits individuals to engage and to build confidence. So that's one way we do it. After this, I'm off to go for a run because I need to get my steps up because we're currently running, which we do on a regular basis, different well-being initiatives that support people being active, support their mental health. And we find that these programmatic approaches connect people. So building a connection, we can deliver support around well-being, but actually I think what most people enjoy is being connected and having fun around something outside of the day job. So none of this is imposed on anyone. Of course, if somebody wants to engage with the private Instagram account, they can. If they don't, they certainly won't. So I think these are the different ways that we've been looking to engage colleagues along the way. With managers, we always take time to do sessions that I call live so that they have a degree of being interactive. And that allows proper conversation to take place about what do we really mean by this, what are the expectations, and to make sure that everybody's really clear as a result.
Finally, you mentioned whether it's measuring steps or otherwise, and I think you referred to a couple of indicators of, is this working? How on something like this, generating a culture of care, do you evaluate the success, or do you measure progress? Or that can be quite tricky, obviously, with anything cultural, but is there ways you've thought about that in terms of actually seeing, is this working, or should we try something different and so on?
And it's something we think persistently about because I don't think there is one obvious, precisely right answer to that. So I think we need to stay alert all the time. Are we seeing the things that we should be seeing? I feel that a lot of what I do is to look outside of the organisation in terms of society's trends to see, well, how is that affecting our people? And I think that's a large part of the role. That's what I'm there to do. But we do have that said, measurement that you might expect. We have a culture dashboard. We call it our indicator dashboard. We look at customer outcomes, we look at colleague outcomes, but on the basis of do they indicate that something isn't going okay. So less a performance outcome versus an indication of whether a trend is going okay. That it does include mental health. We go further around that to look in more analysis on use of our EAP programs and the like. So we do use data, we do have tracking. The culture dashboard goes to both our executive and to our board, so it has a level of oversight on it. That all said, I think that on this approach, you can just anecdotally know and feel momentum.
Feedback from your managers, probably, I'm sure, as well.
Feedback from managers, from colleagues, they just let us know, they let me know. They let me know if they think something could be better, but they do. They're brilliant. They do also let you know when they're proud of us doing something and doing something different. And if they recognise what we're doing has been important in their lives, they are positive around that. And then you get the odd anecdotal piece that is just lets you know that it's all worth it. So to give you just one of those little stories, we did some work, and it is around a difficult area of suicide prevention. And we rolled out training for our managers, and within it, there was a piece of training that's publicly available. It's from the AHANA Zero Suicide Alliance, so I'd say that because anybody can access it. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to do. It took me 30 minutes. I think it's meant to take 20. And it helps you with suicide prevention. One of our colleagues did this training and had an interaction with a customer, and she felt there were issues and she kicked in around the training that she'd had. And obviously it's something I wouldn't say too much about, but we helped somebody that day very significantly. And I'm really proud that work that we're doing with our colleagues in that case was then utilised with a customer. When you have stories like that you know you're on the right track. And so I think there is a place for measurement for sure, but there's also a place where you instinctively know that your people and actually your customers are saying that you're doing the right thing. Then you can have confidence in that and keep pushing on.
Matt, can I just really thank you for sharing so generously something that is a topic of interest for so many people in terms of how do you get that balance? How do you create this culture of care in real practical ways and make sure that it's done in a very authentic way? Thank you very much for sharing your story. I'll let you get your steps in now.
Thank you very much. I'm off for a run.